Welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm Coach Jolie, and today I have Coach Terra and Coach Adam here, and we are chatting all about heart rate zone training. So before we dive into that, let's talk about one of our members of the week. We always like to give a shout out to a client of the week who's just been showing up, been putting in the work, and this week we want to give a shout out to Jenny Urbans.
Yeah, Jenny's had some life things going on. As Jolie would like to say, life just keeps giving her more life. So she's took a little bit break from the gym, I think 2 or 3 weeks. She had like a college trip with her daughter, so a couple of different things going on. But before that, leading up to it, was super consistent and making a lot of great progress and made a good like community kind of friend group. She trains at 6 a.m. a lot, which is a great hour here. So it was good to have her come back this week, and she's back in like the full swing of things. And obviously, right now we're in our strength phase, and when you guys listen to this, we still will be. It'll be our last week of strength. But she's been, I can always look over at her, and she's always pushing herself, even when nobody's watching, which is always a good sign. So she's pretty locked in. She's great, consistent.
Let's go, Jenny. Awesome. I think it's a big win for her in general too, just because it's like, she's a testament to like, yes, life's going to keep giving you more life. Like life is going to throw things at you. And it's about like just remaining not only resilient, but like keeping persistent and keeping constant with your workouts and things like that. And I know she's been just really trying to get her workouts in, and 6 a.m. can be a tough time to get up early and get your workout in before work. So
sprinkled in a couple 5 a.m.s as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go, Jenny. All right. So we're chatting all about heart rate zone training today. So I don't even know where to begin with this one. We've got Adam. You want to start? You want to start with this one?
I'd love to. So basically, heart rate zone training, we are trying to determine your level of intensity during any given exercise or any form of exercise. So a lot of times people will, I think, correlate heart rate zone training. That's going to be tough for this episode to say. They correlate it with cardio, I feel like, a lot of times, because you think heart rate, you think that's what's going to really get it to raise. But there's a lot of different ways that we can obviously tie it into strength training and other forms of exercise. So just kind of going to give like a kind of an overview, like a run 1 through 5 is basically how they break up heart rate zones, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest, kind of what happens in each zone, what the goal is of each zone basically. And then we're going to get a little bit into how different macronutrients are used in different phases, primarily as the fuel source, and kind of what to expect or how you should be feeling as you come across or enter through these different zones. So I'll just start off with like zone 1, for example. So zone 1 is a low intensity zone. When you are in it, about 80 to 85% of the calories that you're burning are fat. So you can correlate this with like slow treadmill walking, or even your like dynamic warm-up. When we start our warm-ups here, it's usually a combination of 3 different exercises, low reps, often body weight, and you should be able to maintain a conversation, normal speaking. You're not exerting yourself past that level when you're in zone 1.
Yeah. I think zone 1 is living, you guys.
It's like regular day to day.
It's regular day to day. Like you're doing housework, like you're in zone 1 training. You're really not exerting yourself. I think it's 50 to 60% of your max heart rate is zone 1. So you're just living zone 1.
And I think before we get any further, because you dropped the max heart rate percentage, the easiest way, closest estimate without getting crazy math and doing experiments and stuff like that, is 220 minus your age is going to give you a rough estimate, give or take about 10 beats per minute on what your maximum heart rate is. So obviously 20-year-old, super young, 220 minus 20, their max heart rate might be right around 200 beats per minute, somewhere right below that maybe. So in the zone 1, we're at 50 to 60%. Again, main fuel source, fat. That's going to be the main contributor. So if you move into zone 2, it's going to be considered a little bit more moderate. The calories start to still going to be predominantly fat, but a lower percentage now, 60 to 65%. You can still hold conversation, but you might need to like stop chatting and kind of catch your breath for a second. So basically we're just stepping it up a little bit. It's, right after your warm up, you should feel, not like you just started your warm up, but you just did something basically, for lack of a better term. But light endurance is like another way to kind of say it. So 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. That's starting to get into, I think, what a normal resistance training working set would be starting to touch on a little bit. 60 to 70 is going to be like the low end. So still working predominantly fat as the macronutrient there. I feel like I'm just going to talk the whole time.
No, it's all good. And I think with zone 2, especially over the past few years, it's become kind of like I don't know, it's like your steady state cardio, right? I think treadmill walking has become a big, I don't know, trend, if you will, or it's become even more trendy over the past few years where people are like, oh, I need to get my zone 2 training in to be in like my fat burning zone, right? And there's so much where people are kind of like, it's essentially, it's boring, right? Like I like to call it like boring cardio because you're at like the same pace. You're thinking like, okay, like I'm walking at the same pace if you're doing treadmill walking or things
even
like that.
outdoor walking.
Or outdoor walking too. Yeah, for sure.
It's just hard in Scottsdale to do that right now, but
yeah, exactly.
Arizona in general.
But
in general.
Yeah, in general. And I think
Had
also
to drop the pin, sorry.
And with zone 2 training too, there's been a lot of evidence and research over the past few years where it helps to build longevity too and just keep heart healthy, all that stuff. Again, not overly exerting, right? It's like that 60 to 70%, like you said. So yeah.
Okay.
Keep on going.
Good.
Zone 3.
All right, we'll keep going. Zone 3. So now that we're in like the light to moderate, it starts to become predominantly moderate as far as what you'd call intensity level, maybe a little bit moderate to high. So we're looking at the 70 to 80% maximum heart rate. So this is where your typical, I think, strength training set would occur for the most part, in like a hypertrophy phase or maybe even an endurance phase, something that's going to definitely elevate your heart rate higher than what you were at rest right before your set. And then with fat still being a contributor as a fuel source, it starts to, body starts to use more protein and carbohydrates as well, kind of as like a backup source. So those start to get incorporated a little bit. And now it's a little bit more tempo based. So things are faster and picking up a little bit more. So I think this is where most sets, for resistance training fall under. As we get into zone 4, I think there's kind of like a next step that's taken, which is where we see some strength training also, like maybe in our strength phase right now, for example. But I don't know, anything else to add to zone 3? 70-80% heart rate ish.
I agree. Most strength training takes place in that zone.
Yeah.
Just because we're not going too much higher than that, because you're not taxing yourself going, depending on the exercise. But just normal strength training typically will be mostly in that zone.
Yeah, and you feel like you need a rest.
Right, you're noticeably exerting yourself in zone 3.
Yeah, you're like you need a rest about and like back
feeling
and forth.
Winded.
Yeah.
Not that you couldn't do the next set, but you might take a little extra couple deep breaths to help bring that heart rate back down.
Yeah.
Right. All right. And then, so moving into zone 4, considered high intensity. So, there's like that whole, high intensity interval training thing that goes on that everyone talks about. So you can achieve high intensity without doing HIIT training. So this is 80 to 90% of your max heart rate. So I think of, maybe like a heavy strength set, like some back squats or something like that, where you're really pushing yourself to the brink, essentially. You're trying to push your limits, and you could find yourself in that 80 to 90% max heart rate kind of range. Carbs and protein become the main sources of energy at this point, because now it's a high intensity. So we're not using that fat source anymore. And we start to, I guess a term would be like redlining, almost, not in the sense that people think, but redlining in reaching like a lactate threshold. So when you're resistance training, you're building up lactic acid and lactate in the body and in the muscle. So when you reach you're essentially building up to a point where you meet your lactate threshold, and a good measurement of cardiovascular endurance is essentially how long can you work at that threshold. For some people that may not be as conditioned, it's going to be really quick. Like you're going to peak, meet that threshold, and then start to fall or fatigue right after that. Those who are more conditioned can peak, reach it, and then even work at it for a certain amount of time. So this is where we start to see that threshold actually met, like as far as like in a working set, or if you're doing cardio in a cardio set of some kind or something like that.
Yeah.
Anything else? Set 4 or zone 4? Sorry.
Yeah, zone 4. And before we go to zone 5, we were talking about the macronutrients that are used and kind of used as like energy sources throughout each of these zones. Like, I think we should make it clear that it's like, okay, it's not that you just, if you're trying to lose body weight or body fat, that you need to be in a fat, quote unquote, fat burning zone, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's important to note that we're talking about all of these zones and they're all important and they all have a place, and we'll go into like the importance and how we're in our strength phase now, zones that you kind of want to aim for and stuff like that. But just, I felt like we should definitely call that out, because it's not just like, oh, we need to burn fat, or we need, like, there's value in burning like carbs, being in zone 4, being in zone 2. So yeah. Yep. Zone 5.
Yep. And sorry, just to add to zone 4, best way to kind of tell also, aside from being in the 80 to 90% max heart rate number, if you have that number in your head after doing that simple math, is you should be like struggling to speak. Basically, like if you should feel like you don't, like if somebody asks you a question, you shouldn't want to feel like you can answer them. you should be out of breath.
It's a good way to put it.
Hold on.
Hold on, I just finished something. All right, so zone 5, this is basically like a max effort, right? So this is 90 to 100% of what your max heart rate is. Very high would be the intensity level, and it's very short bouts. Usually they say under a couple of minutes. The zone 4 can be stretched to maybe 10-ish minutes, but just a couple of minutes for this, and it's considered like an anaerobic zone. And this is where like that VO2 max number that people are sometimes familiar with comes into play. VO2 max is like another tool or stat for measuring cardiovascular health. And it's essentially how long can you work at your lactate threshold, and like how long can you sustain not max, but high intensity exercise. So this is where we see that. Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. So zones 1 through 5, we just ran through them. Let's go into, so we're in our strength phase right now. Where do people want to be when they're doing strength training? Like, and in our strength phase, we're doing 5 sets, 5 reps of an exercise. The idea is like we're going heavier, right? So where do people want to be for this one?
I like a 3-4 range.
Yeah? Why?
Because you're putting the intensity into the workout. Like you're at that higher heart rate, but it's not coming from essentially like going out and, I don't know, people think, well, I'm a runner, so it's not like going out there and doing like a 15-second sprint.
Right.
You can get that same intensity, that same effort on a heavy enough lift. Mm-hmm. If you ever felt that feeling that you got a good, strong lift in, something you've never done for that max, and you get out from under it and you're just like, man, I can't catch my breath. Like it's that feeling, that zone is that you want to be in. Like you have to sit down, take a break, and recover from that lift. So being in that range, knowing that you're exerting the energy that you need to be able to be in a strength phase.
Yeah, completely agree. And the reason why it wouldn't be a 5 is because of the repeatability.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you got to be able to turn around in 2 to 2.5-ish minutes and do it again, right? With the same intensity and hopefully like the same result or outcome, or even better sometimes if you're progressively overloading your weight. So yeah, 3 to 4.
Cool. Okay. So strength.
Yep.
But why don't we go through all of our phases?
Okay.
Because we're going to be going well, integration is what we go into in between all of our phases, right? And so that's like our phase where we're making sure there's no gaps in your fitness. We've recorded a bunch of podcasts on that one. You guys can go back and listen. But when we're at our integration phase, are we aiming for a certain range, do you guys think, would you say? Or are we kind of just...
I'd say you're kind of touching on them all, but not maybe as strictly as you would if you're in a specific phase. So, your set and rep range is going to be changing from one block to the next, and it starts with a strength block and then a hypertrophy and then an endurance block. So you could have that in the back of your mind, but at the same time, we've talked about how it's a quote unquote kind of deload week. So we don't ever want to reach like a crazy stress level during integration anyways, but I think you're going to touch on them all if you're like, if you're really great with tracking your weights and accurately lifting what you should in each block, then like you're going to be in different zones throughout.
Yeah, that's true. And then we're going into endurance, everyone's favorite phase, endurance, where we're doing like, what is it, 3 sets of like 15, 3 sets of 20 reps.
Yeah,
we're lighter in our weights. Heart rate zone, what would you say for that one, Terra?
I would say 3, but on the lower end of a 3. Borderline 2, but again, 2 is still, in my opinion, kind of low.
Yeah.
But so
an aggressive warm up.
Basically.
Yeah.
We went a little more than our warm up, but still not like, oh, okay, we're here.
Right.
So I would still say more of a 3 zone. So a little lower than on that 60. If we're looking at the range again, lower in that 60% range for that heart rate. But that's where I will put in endurance, because we still are putting an honest effort into what you're doing. It's just that since we're doing more reps, the weight's not as heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
What about when we're trying to progress in our weights in like a hypertrophy phase where we're doing like sets, we're going like 12, 10, 8, and 6 is how our hypertrophy goes?
It's going to land in the same 3 to 4.
Same, yeah.
It's going to be the same 3 to 4, but I mean, if you're progressively overloading, I think I said that right, progressively overloading correctly, you're going to fatigue a little bit with each set. If you're benching 40 pounds at the set of 12 and you end at 60, not only is the fatigue playing a factor, but obviously the load is increased, so heart rate's going to increase. You're naturally going to slip into a different zone. So there's that, but also keeping in mind, like, and I feel like we try to share this a lot with clients, is we have hour-long sessions here, so a lot of times people will fall into trying to work quickly, but you want to be able to recover appropriately so you can give your accurate performance or accurate effort level from one set to the next. So being able to recover consistently, give yourself that either 90-second break, 2-minute break, whatever it is, and then you can turn around and do a set properly, and then if you fall into a different zone, then you do.
Yeah.
And the recovery is bringing your heart rate back down. You don't want to keep your heart rate at 80% for the entire set or the entire workout, because that's not safe.
Right.
Performance is going to go down.
So being able to take that rest period when we're doing our active recovery, that foam rolling, allowing your heart rate to get back down to be able to come back up for that next set.
Right. Exactly. Training in different zones, it's good for just overall health and fitness. And what we kind of take pride in here is like making sure that fitness fits into your lifestyle. And so I think by training in all of the heart rate zones, which we do a pretty good job of, at least coaching can only go so far. Like you have to push yourself a little bit as like a member here. But I think we do a pretty good job at like making sure like you guys are being pushed enough, you're training in different zones, you're getting that recovery, like you said, Terra, with like the myofascial release. We're pushing where we can with strength, endurance, hypertrophy. Are we leaving anything out, you guys? Heart rate zones, things people should know?
I don't think so. I think if you're curious and it's something that you're interested in, like do that quick little math equation to at least give yourself a ballpark. And, we've got a lot of tracking devices now. People wear Apple Watches, Whoops, Auras, whatever, all these things. They're not the most accurate things in the world, especially as they get further away from the center of your body. The more distal they get, it gets a little more inaccurate, but it can give you at least a ballpark kind of thing. So you can use that data if you're into that and try to then apply it when you're in the gym. That's a good way to at least try to get a feel for like what different zones feel like, and then you could base your workouts off of how you're feeling.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
I think we hit it all. All right, you guys. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. We'll be back next week with more great stuff.
Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.